I did forget in the announcements this morning. I knew I wouldn't get through the announcements without forgetting something at some point. I did forget to mention that Brother Eric and Lee and Grant are in Africa, and they're over there doing the Lord's work, and several have been baptized, and we want to remember them in our prayers as well, which Brother Jim picked me up on that this morning, and I appreciate that. It wasn't my intention to forget that, because that's, of course, why I'm up here and Eric is not. If you're visiting and you haven't got to hear Eric speak, he is a very talented speaker. I am not a very talented speaker. And I did want to say something about thanking all of you who have stepped up in their absence. I know several have taught classes, and last week Mickey and Brother Ben spoke, and Evan spoke this morning and did just a fantastic job. He's always such an encouragement to me that he's willing to spread the word of God. And later on today, it's his turn to speak at the jail as well. So he's really stepping up, and he just is such an encouragement to me. I imagine at some point, most of you have been to a zoo at some point in time. I don't know if there's any here who have never been to a zoo, but if you haven't been, it's really interesting to go see a zoo. But my favorite thing to look at zoos is the predators. I like to look at the bears. I like to look at the polar bears, the tigers. But one thing I especially like to look at is the lions. I like to go and watch the lions. I've been to the zoo, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in my life, and I'm always fascinated by the lions. They are big, strong predators. A lion is very impressive to look at. They are extremely powerful. They have very large teeth and large claws. They're designed to aggressively kill and devour their prey. I looked up, it said the average male lion will stand about 4 foot tall at their shoulder, and they get up to 10 foot long, and they can weigh up to 550 pounds. So it's a big animal. And they're called the king of the jungle. I'm not sure why they're called the king of the jungle, because they don't live in the jungle, but they're called the king of the jungle. But one time when I was at the zoo, I was sitting, there was a lion, a male lion that was up real close to the glass. And he was walking kind of back and forth. And that lion let out a roar. And I had seen lions roar in the movies, and that lion for the MGM, it always roars. But when you hear a lion roar in person, it is amazing. I bet when he roared, the whole zoo could hear him. It is so loud. And it'll make the hair on your neck stand up. I mean, but let's take a look at 1 Peter 5 and verse 8. It says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." So we see here the devil is compared to a lion prowling around looking for someone to devour. That's not a very pleasant thought at all. I wouldn't want a lion coming after me. As we just discussed, lions are designed to kill and devour their prey. And here, the devil is described as a lion seeking out his prey, and that would be us. The devil is seeking us out to devour us. Let's take a look at Job 1, verses 6 and 7. It says there in Job, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. I think maybe the reason he's roaming the earth and going back and forth is to look for prey and to look for whom he can devour. And I think many times in modern times, it seems like movies and cartoons and TV shows, they've almost made the devil into kind of a comical character. If you see a little cartoon picture of the devil, he has horns and the pitchfork and a pointy tail. But 1 Peter 5, it tells us that he is our enemy. He's not comical. He's not humorous. He's not someone to be admired. I know some TV shows and movies like make the devil look like this charismatic British person that's like very friendly. The Bible doesn't describe Satan that way. And I don't know if you've ever seen videos of lions attacking their prey in the wild. It's vicious and it's gruesome, but that's the way the devil is with us. It's not humorous, it's not comical. Satan is our enemy, and the only thing that he desires is to kill us physically and spiritually. Let's look at John 10. John 10, verses beginning there in verse 7. Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. Verse 10 here. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. So we see here the thief, Satan, he comes to kill and destroy. Satan definitely is not our friend. He only wants to do harm to us. But going back to that 1 Peter 5 and verse 8, there's a part of that I've always wondered about. It calls Satan a roaring lion. And that's kind of what I want to take a minute and look at. Why would Satan be referred to as a roaring lion? Because when I think of lions going after prey, I think of them sneaking around, being stealthy, being quiet, sneaking up on their prey. Why would the devil be described as a roaring lion? Several references that I looked at said that the reason Satan is called a roaring lion is because he's trying to put fear and intimidate his prey. But to me, I don't think that makes sense. If he's coming after us, why would he roar? Roaring puts fear into people, and they would want to run off and get away. So that kind of doesn't make sense to me. And obviously I'm no Bible scholar, but it seems like to me the reason that he's called a roaring lion is he's looking for people that do not fear him. He's looking for those that don't care that he's roaring and that he's after them. Because when we become fearful and scared, we become more alert and more cautious. So him roaring would put us on the defensive, and we would want to get away from him. But that's why I think he's looking for those who don't fear him. If you were at the zoo with your family and they came over the intercom and they said, a lion has just escaped from its pen, what would be your first reaction? What would most all of us do if they made that announcement while you were at the zoo? You'd get the kids and the grandkids, and you would try to get to as safe a place as you possibly could. You wouldn't think, well, I'm just going to stay here and see what happens. Hopefully that lion doesn't come our way. No, you would do everything in your power to get to safety. But it seems like in the world today, many times, we know that Satan's there roaring, but we don't try to get to safety. We don't try to run away. But it's almost like we are encouraging Satan to come and try to devour us. We all know what's right and wrong. However, many times because of our own selfish desires and our own selfish nature, we don't do what we know is right, and we allow the lion to attack us. I'm sure that we can all think of sins that Satan uses to sink his claws into us. And oftentimes we are more than willing participants in these evil things Satan puts before us. Romans 6:23 tells us that the wages of sin is death. Another thing that I believe could be the case with Satan being called a roaring lion is that, especially nowadays, it seems like Satan is pretty much open and honest about what he wants to do to us. He's not trying to sneak around. He's not trying to hide. Nowadays, all you have to do is turn on the TV and you can see Satan is right there in your face. He's not trying to be deceptive or fool us a lot of times. He's just flat out telling us what he wants to do to us. I think of, Eve in the garden. He kind of tried to trick her by being dishonest with her to get her to eat that fruit. But nowadays, man, it just seems like he's just right in our face about it. I think about fornication and adultery and homosexuality and now this transgender thing. If in today's world, if you stand against that, you'll be called some kind of phobe. They have all these phobias. But I can remember when I was younger, most people didn't live together. They didn't live together before they were married. But nowadays, it's like, if you're a young person getting married, it's like, why don't you just live together first and make sure it's going to work out? It's like Satan is just right in your face about everything, roaring, just a roaring lion. And then I also think about drugs. When I was younger, I know there's always been drugs, but it used to just be marijuana mainly. But now there are drugs that can kill you the first time you take them. And it happens all the time. And yet people know, like fentanyl. I'm not a drug expert, but I know fentanyl is killing a lot of people now. And yet people keep taking it every day. It's like Satan is right in front of you roaring, and I'm just going to let him devour me, So what can we do to resist Satan? What are some things we can do to overcome this roaring lion? If we look at 1 Peter 5:8 again, we're going to add verse 9 in this time. Once again, it says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering." So if we look here, verse 8 tells us that we need to be alert and of sober mind. We need to be paying attention and looking out for Satan. And then down in verse 9, it says we should stand firm in the faith and resist him. So as long as we stand firm in the faith, we can resist Satan. Also, if we look at Ephesians 4, Ephesians 4, verses 26 through 28. "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need." So we see here that we don't want to sin in our anger. That's when the devil can take advantage of us. I know a lot of times when I get angry, that's when I kind of lose control and maybe say or do things that I shouldn't do. So we don't want to let the devil get a foothold on us when we're angry. I think it's also interesting that it tells us there that we should do something useful with our hands. I know a lot of kids do sports to help them stay out of getting into trouble. And I've always heard idle hands are the devil's workshop. I'm sure that holds true. So I think it's good if we will be doing things and not sitting around looking for trouble as well. Let's look at 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 5 through 10. "Don't you remember that when I was with you, I used to tell you these things? And now you know what is holding him back, so that he may be revealed at the proper time. For the secret power of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who now holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the splendor of his coming. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, and all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. So we see here that we need to love the truth and follow Christ, and that way we will not perish. We will be able to resist Satan. Also, let's take a look at 2 Timothy 2. 2 Timothy 2, beginning in verse 22. Flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. Don't have anything to do with foolish and stupid arguments, because you know they produce quarrels. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, not resentful. Opponents must be gently instructed in the hope that God will grant them repentance, leading them to a knowledge of the truth, and that they will come to their senses and escape from the trap of the devil, who has taken them captive to do his will. So we see here that we should flee evil desires and escape from the trap of the devil. It tells us that we should pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, and also to have a pure heart. And this will help us to resist Satan. Let's also take a look at James 4. This one is the most encouraging. Or at least to me, it is the most encouraging. James 4 and verse 7. This is one that I'm sure you've all heard. Submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That's pretty amazing that you can, if that's a roaring lion, you can make him flee from you simply by resisting him. And then finally, let's look at Mark 16 and verse 16. This is another one I'm sure you're all familiar with. Whoever believes in and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. So we also need to believe and be baptized in order to be saved from this roaring lion. When I was doing my research for this lesson and research about lions, it said that every year on average, 250 people are killed by lions. That's a lot. I wouldn't have thought it had been that high, but I guess maybe over in Africa where the people are around lions all the time. But still, 250 are killed each year by a lion. I can't imagine how horrific that would be to be devoured by a lion. But then I think, can you imagine how many lost souls are devoured by Satan each and every year? And how horrific that death is going to be. If we look at Matthew chapter 13, beginning there in verse 41, the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. They will throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears, let them hear. So we see here that it tells us there's going to be a burning furnace in the end, and there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I know the videos that you've seen of lions attacking their prey, most of those are during the day. But in my research, it says they do that just for video purposes. Every now and then a lion will attack in the day, but most of the time a lion attacks at night. It attacks in the dark. But I thought this verse was very encouraging because it says that we will shine like the sun if we're saved. So there won't be any darkness for Satan to attack in. If we're living a faithful life, we will shine like the sun. And we can make Satan flee from us, just like we read in James 4 and 7. How awesome is that thought? So today, if you've let the roaring lion Satan get his claws into you a little bit, and you'd like to be baptized and receive remissions of your sin and be saved, or if you need the prayers of the congregation, won't you come this morning and get the devil fleeing from you as we stand and